the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. Everything has good and bad. Nothing is 100% perfect. So life is about evaluating what is best for you. Everyone's different. So for me, the simple life and living on the road full-time out of my car for the past 2.5 years, I have an experience in sharing with you what the good and the bad, what the pros and the cons are of living in your car. First, with the pros, the good news. The good news is extreme flexibility. Okay? And flexibility allows you to do a lot of things in life that you normally, in a conforming life, would not be able to do. Obviously, such as travel whenever you want, for business or for personal. Use your flexibility to travel to an area that is more rich in job opportunity if you're struggling. You don't have to stay in one spot. You're not a tree. You're living a mobile lifestyle, and the flexibility is an asset. It's leverage. It's something you can use and position yourself to enrich your life, whether it's for travel, personally, or for business, repositioning yourself. If you want to get into the IT field and, you're living in Kentucky, maybe you want to get in your car, start it, and move to Silicon Valley. So that flexibility, that asset is a huge pro, okay? A con is you still have to find a place to park, okay? Because it is legal for the most part to live in your car, but it can be illegal to park in areas where you're not allowed to. So I have made several videos on my channel, and I have a playlist dedicated to just the Nomad simple life. And some ways that I found that you can safe and legally park are this. One is campgrounds. And the 1,000 Trails campground membership, depending on the area in the United States you plan to camp, is a great cost-efficient way to supplement, to provide you a place to safe and legally park. You would be a tent camper, okay? So you don't need an RV to go to a campground. You can be a tent camper. Some campgrounds may not allow tent camping, but many and most do. Walmarts for one night, truck stops for one night, different areas that if you're traveling in and out of towns, you can use, for one night or a couple nights here and there. And it's just a mix. It's a variety. But it can be done. But that's how you combat the con. And so another pro is that you can take more risk. So if you wanted to start your own personal business venture, starting a business, investments or whatever, but you realize that you're going to take on a little bit more risk, so you want to mitigate your liability. And when you cut your expenses and when you cut down what you're responsible for, because when you own a house or when you sign a lease agreement, you are obligated, you're responsible, you have a liability to either the mortgage company, the township, or the landlord to comply with certain rules and costs. So when you get rid of that and you live now in your car, it still costs money, okay? But it may, in many cases, it costs below what most people are paying for housing. So you can take more risk because you've mitigated some liability, and so now you can rebalance, your risk metrics. So that's very exciting, and that makes life worth living sometimes, when you can have hope and when you can dream and when you can pursue a passion. That's a positive. That's what keeps us juiced up. Now, the con is, I think that you have to be at a certain level of good health. Because you are moving so much, even if you have the safe and legal parking, you're not in a stable environment. A house or an apartment is very stable. The routine that you have day in and day out is very predictable. And that helps you mitigate your health liabilities. You have consistent doctors. You have a consistent area that you live. So that supplements the fact that, you're hurting physically or mentally and you can't move much. So, the con is, if you're not in good health or you're not of a certain age, for the most part, it may not be worth it to live on the road. Now, there's exceptions. There's always exceptions to every rule. I have seen some older people live full-time on the road, and even people struggling with some disabilities. But it's something you have to take into account. That's the good and the bad. Okay, the good is, again, you can pursue more passions, you can live a more freeing life, less liabilities, but you have to have a level of physical and mental wherewithal to endure that. Okay. So the pro is every day is a little bit of an adventure. You're not going to get bored because at any time you can change your environment. You could travel a little bit. It costs money. But it adds to a little bit of an excitement, a little bit of a challenge. Sometimes you get stuck in the same area. It's no challenge. We need to be challenged a little bit as people. Not too much to burn us out or stress us out, but a little bit. Relationships, same thing. Like, you need to be challenged a little bit. So that's a pro. That every day is a little bit of an adventure. Okay. And the adventure never stops. And that's the con. Sometimes there's a difference between going on vacation and living on vacation. Sometimes you want the adventure to end because you can get what they call road weary. That even though you figured out a flow, you figured out a routine, there's something in the mind that's not settled. And, you get road weary. And the adventure you want to end. And you want a level of consistency. Again, because humans are creatures of habit. And even though we get bored and we want adventure, we also revert back to the human nature of habits. We want a level of predictability. So that's a tough balance. And it goes back to individual, knowing yourself, trying things, readjusting. And, nothing lasts forever, though. So life in your car, life on the road may not last forever. It probably won't. Nothing does. So, and as you get older, you have to think about, what's your exit strategy if you have to or if you want to. An exit strategy could be you get a small travel trailer and, you just only move campgrounds once in a while. Or you just find a RV park that you're willing to live in and ride out your remaining days. So if you were really at a low income scale and really you didn't want to be on the road anymore, your landing spot is probably going to be a cheap RV park. If you have limited financial means and if you can't re-enter the housing market or apartment market, even though you could get some type of subsidized housing if you had real low income, but you may not like it in those areas. So RV parks are not that glorious, especially ones that are cheaper. But, if you can move, then you don't have to deal with permanent neighbors. But these are all some thoughts, some pros and some cons, some idea of an exit strategy. But I think that, if you position your life, it's going to depend on if you're single and, your age and your health, all those things vary. And it's individual. There's exceptions. But I think if you're in a season of life, if you position yourself, if you researched, if you find out a way to sustain an income living on the road, you don't have to travel to each state every different month. You can stay in one state, okay? And you can keep a local job. I had a local job in an office in New Jersey for a year and a half, my first year and a half living in my car. So I wasn't traveling. Only on the weekends I would go hour or two road trips. And I would take vacations. And then go up and down the East Coast on my vacations in a couple weeks during the year. So this is some insight, some pros, some cons. But overall, I'm a middle-aged man. I'm 39 years old. I started this journey at 37 or so. Overall, this life, living in my car, has been good. I've had good and bad times. Nothing is perfect. And I researched it. I planned. I didn't just jump in. It took me 2 years to downsize and to mitigate my risk, to take the leap. But overall, it's been good to me. It doesn't mean it'll be good for everyone. And there's no guarantees in life, so do your own research. But I am thankful for the simple life. I think worst case scenario, if you plan right and you prepare right and you have an exit strategy, worst case scenario is you're going to be living a more simple life. Okay, and that's a positive. A downsized, simple life where you have higher income than expensive is wisdom. But like I always share, if you're living on $1,000 or less per month, I don't think you want to try to venture out too far because that's poverty. Even living in your car, that's poverty. I'm not saying you can't make it, but at a certain point, I think you want to try to get your income above $2,000 a month. And that's not hard if you have some level of physical and mental ability, because $10 an hour, working 40 hours a week, is $1,600 a month gross. Okay, so then if you add a couple side jobs, Uber, DoorDash, or cleaning houses on the weekend, those are all jobs you don't need a college degree. You can get above that $2,000 a month mark, and you're not going to pay much taxes at that income bracket. So you're going to have to push yourself a little bit. I see some people adopt the simple life, but then they live below their means, but also below their potential. And that's not wisdom. But do what you want. I'm sharing my thoughts. God bless you. Peace and love. Hit that thumbs up button. Share the video. Subscribe if you're not. Look on my channel playlist of Nomad Simple Living, where I've documented my journey, the good and the bad, and I've shared my life. Subscribe if you're not. I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love.